Welcome to SVG-TV News for Thursday, September 11th. I'm Jimmy Prince with the details. Indigo Watersports Limited is in a news release on Tuesday announced that it has discontinued its business relationships with the Buckermont Bay Resort, citing that what it claims is the inability of the resort to meet its financial obligations. The company says it has removed all staff and equipment from the resort property and is in the process of relocating the dive operation to new premises. Speaking to SVG-TV News on the matter earlier today, manager of Indigo Watersports Limited, Kay Wilson, explained that she had entered into a contractual agreement with the resort 4 years ago. However, due to the non-payment of monies owed to her, she was forced to pull out of the agreement.
Bear in mind, from a cash flow perspective, up until the beginning of this year, any income that was generated would go through the resort's point of sale system. So everything was charged to the guest's room, and then when they checked out, the guest would then pay with either credit card or cash. I would then invoice and expect to be paid within a reasonable time, which again, when you have staff to pay and inventory to replace, wear and tear, insurances, not just for the provision of service but for the boats and other activities, all of the expenses mount up, and given 2 to 3 months where you don't get paid, those expenses mount up exponentially because there is no income. Any business person will tell you, you must have some cash flow, you must have something coming in. If you're having expenditure all the time with no income, then something has to give.
Wilson said that it was a difficult decision to make, but it became clear that she had to let go in order to save her business.
Not just the salary part of it, it's the NIS and the tax and all the other bits and pieces. And again, most employees don't understand that if I pay you $100 on paper, the NIS costs me an extra 4.5%. So it costs me $104.50 to employ you. But you don't get $104.50, you get your $100 less your NIS, and if you have a tax to pay, less your tax. So you may end up with, say, $80 in your pocket, but it's costing me more money to provide you with that employment. And in order to do that legally, it costs money. And if you don't get paid, you can't pay your staff. And that's heartbreaking when you have to sit down with somebody and say, I can't afford to employ you anymore.
As to the next step forward, Wilson says she is not in a position to state the method or methods that will be used to recover the outstanding monies she claims are owed to her company by the resort. Meanwhile, the Buckermont Bay Resort is claiming that Indigo Watersports Incorporated is seeking to harm the resort by making comments without foundation. In a news release today, the resort states that its parent company Harlequin is ready to publicly defend any claim through the court system, and that Wilson and her company are ill-equipped to speculate on the financial standings of the resort. In its own defense, the resort claims that there were problems with the contractual position to the extent that maintaining Indigo Dive's services was not commercially viable. The resort further states that after it became apparent that financial and practical disagreements could not be resolved, it was agreed that the resort and the dive company would part ways. However, Wilson says she is standing firmly by her statements made earlier in her news release, and that had she been paid, she would have continued offering her services to the resort. The St. Vincent and the Grenadines Teachers Union has spoken out on the issue regarding the late opening of the intermediate high school. President of the union, Oswald Robinson, told SVG-TV News while he understands that there may be setbacks which occur from time to time, he is calling on the authorities to ensure they get the little things right.
Yes, we are living in economic times that are challenging, but I am always saying that the authorities have to get it right. You have to plan in advance. You must have a plan B.
The list, he says, would then be submitted to the Ministry of Education and then on to Cabinet for approval.
We are living in economic times that are challenging, but I am always saying that the authorities have to get it right. You have to plan in advance. You must have a plan B. Yes? I know the authorities will do it sometimes. You may shift some funding from here, earmark for a particular school to wherever it becomes a priority. And we applaud them for that. But, I mean, you have a secondary school, should be open with the others. And as a union, nobody said anything to us.
The SVG-TU president says when issues arise, such as the late start to an academic year and students' performance at external examinations are affected, it is the teachers who get the full brunt of the criticism.
Authorities have a right to get the schools ready on time. Yes, sometimes the funds may not be available. And I heard the Prime Minister explain that, and I understood that. But for too long, we have been delaying, we have been sitting back. You know, you have 6 weeks vacation. You are more caught up in professional development and having clashes with the teachers union when they're planning their activities. Professional development is good. But if the school plan is not ready for, if it's not prepared for schooling, then it's a problem. So we have to, I use the term early o'clock. We have to prepare and we have to do it early. We have to be on time so that the nation's children can be at school. The farm ones are ready. Some of them going into that school for the first time. And they cannot enjoy that right. Education is a fundamental right.
At a media briefing earlier this week, Prime Minister Dr. Rillan Gonzalez made it clear that the fifth formers of the intermediate high school were not affected by the late start of their school year, and that orientation for the new students will take place this Friday. Meanwhile, on another issue, Robinson says the executive of the SVG-TU is still seeking a written response from Prime Minister Dr. Rillan Gonzalez on a concern expressed in a letter regarding the motion put forward in Parliament to borrow up to $15 million to repay outstanding public sector contributions to the NIS.
We wrote a letter to the Prime Minister. We had a meeting and we wrote a letter to the Prime Minister and we asked to put the resolution on hold until he has discussed it with all the stakeholders, right? He read it in Parliament. Now he could say anything in Parliament because he has parliamentary immunity. But we are expecting a formal response. If I write to you expressing a concern, it is just right that you will respond to us in a formal way because it came out from a meeting. I didn't just wake up overnight and write a letter to the Prime Minister. It was a decision by the National Executive. You understand? It so happened that the letter came a little late. You should have had it this very first day. Yes? So it came when he was more or less wrapping up. And in the eyes of the public, people thought we were compromising our position. We were not compromising our position. We took two decisions. One, to make a press statement on the issue. There were two issues. The one with the NIS, the other one with the $9-point-something million being borrowed from the IMF.
During the wrap-up session of the last sitting of Parliament, Dr. Gonzalez responded by inviting the trade unions to meet with the board at the NIS so that they can be reassured that the future of their social security benefits will not be adversely affected. The next executive of the Public Service Union will have a lot of issues to deal with when it is elected into office next month. Interim Committee Chairman of the PSU, Elroy Boucher, said that among the issues to be dealt with include the recent issue regarding the non-payment of public servants' contributions to the National Insurance Services by the government.
The union has a lot of very important issue, pension reform. You heard about the issue with the NIS, and we have this Ebola stuff is in the air in Africa. We have to be very careful about what's happening in St. Vincent. All these are issues that the executive will need to look at. A number of issues. So there's a lot of stuff there to be dealt with by a new executive, but the members must come out and ensure that the right executive is elected.
Some news on agriculture now. St. Vincent and the Grenadines will soon make its fourth major export of cattle to Grenada. Minister of Agriculture Saboto says earlier this week his ministry received a request from Grenada for the purchase of some 200 heads of cattle.
It is a trade that started in 2012. The end of 2012, we conducted this trade in cattle and other livestock in 2013, and we are seeing that it is continuing in 2014. It is the intention of the Ministry of Agriculture to formalize this trade through an MOU with the Ministry of Agriculture and the government of Grenada. This MOU is currently being drafted and it would have to be taken to cabinet, and of course the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is going to play a key role in terms of the execution of this MOU. But it is not going to only include cattle and livestock, the export of cattle and livestock to Grenada, but the technical assistance from Grenada in spices, particularly in nutmegs and cocoa. And we can expect to see the signing of this MOU in the near future. We are in the final stages of the completion of this document.
Some news from the courts. The head of a premium security company here, Adolphus Famo Adams of Camden Park, is now before the court on 4 separate charges of threats and assault. He's accused of issuing the threats on Noel Jackson of Sion Hill and Ulpian Wilkinson of South Rivers, both employees of Vinlec at Lomans Bay on January 20th, 2014. The incident occurred while the men were reportedly carrying out work opposite Adams' business place. Adams appeared at the Kingstown Magistrates Court on Tuesday, September 9th, to which he maintained his innocence on all charges. The matter has been adjourned to September 19th, 2014. Last Saturday's torrential rains have resulted in an increase in the number of persons seeking shelter at the Rillan Hill Community Center. Shelter manager at the center, Stephen Derby, told SVG-TV News that following the December floods, some 23 persons were relocated to the shelter and over the months gradually decreased to 6. However, Derby says last Saturday's rains pushed that figure back up.
At the moment we have 8 persons here because the flood that took place on Saturday brought in 2 more persons, so we ended up having now 8, 2 more added to the 6, so that makes it 8. Yeah.
And the 2 persons that came in, are they from the Vermont, this area?
No, they're not from this area. They're from the Lago Height area.
How have things been at the shelter?
Well, things has been relatively quiet, I could say, yeah. And some progress has been made because about 3 weeks ago, if it's not more, about almost 4 weeks ago, 3 houses were handed over to the 3 largest families in the shelter. Those 3 houses that was built at Hope.
Yeah.
And promises were made to the other persons here that as soon as land is found, that their homes will be built and so on, and they would be relocated.
Derby says he felt for a moment last Saturday that he was about to relive the events of December 24th, 2013.
I was home at Bookment during the time that the flooding was taking place, and I would have seen the Bookment River overflow its banks and so on, and a couple of houses in the Bookment area were flooded out. And I happened to be part of the cleanup campaign myself, with Minister Francis and some others. We assisted the persons in respect to cleaning up and doing other minor things at their homes so that they could have actually moved back to their homes.
So for a moment you felt it like it was December repeating itself?
Yes, I did, because because of the way things were happening. I remember December clearly, and the way how things were happening and so on.
Yeah.
It appeared as if it was December repeating itself.
Though most of the shelterees were not on the compound when SVG-TV News visited, we however spoke with one gentleman who says life has been okay at the shelter and is hopeful that the government will soon rebuild his home.
Your name again?
James Brown.
James Brown. And you're of course one of the shelterees here.
Yeah.
Alright. What area were you from initially?
In Bookament.
Bookament. How have things been since you've been here since December, since the flooding?
Yeah.
Your entire house
went away.
It went away.
Yeah.
You were the only person in the house at the time of the flooding?
Yeah.
Alright. How have things been since you're here at the shelter?
A kind of way. Yeah, but it was good tongue and I got sponsorship and I just go ask for local donation.
Okay. And you've been getting through?
What do you mean?
In related news, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves made it clear at Tuesday's media conference that the drains in the vicinity of the E.T. Joshua Airport were cleaned days prior to the heavy rains, which affected the island early last Saturday morning. Dr. Gonsalves explained that the blockage was as a result of the dirt and other debris washed down by the flood waters. This was in response to the complaints that Dr. Gonsalves said he has been receiving that the airport continues to flood during the heavy rains because the drains are not being cleaned.
So the drains were cleaned. When I heard that people said they were not clean, I had to smile. You know, we have to be, while we must be critical and always be doing the assessments in a critical manner, we must not do them in a hysterical manner. And let us just be calm about these things, because when disasters happen, above all else, we need calm and we need all hands on deck. As soon as these things happen, all soldiers metaphorically must report for duty. I mean, that is the nature of the business.
Well, the second edition of the I-Square competition was officially launched here earlier today at the Villa campus of the SVG Community College. The competition, hosted by the National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission, the NTRC, starts from today, September 11th to January 15th, 2015. Students from various secondary, technical and tertiary level institutions across the country will put forward ideas that can implement new systems or improve existing ones in the public service. Addressing today's launch, Director of the NTRC, Apollo Knights, says with the I-Square competition, they are seeking to create a culture of innovation among the youth in a software arena, identifying needs and creating solutions.
We must strive to be disruptive in what we want to do. It's what needed to innovate. So I'll start with the first one. The NTRC wants to create a culture of innovation among our youths in the software arena, identifying needs and creating solutions. Software, as they say, is eating the world and will continue for the foreseeable future. There's an app for almost anything we want to do. What we're trying to do is to assist in sparking the creative minds of our youth in the area of application development and specifically in mobile apps. While this competition has very specific criteria in that it is targeted towards the mobile apps as it relates to the public service, which is also very important and creates a level of focus among our entrants, we really want the students to think beyond, with no limits to what they can do. That's what we want to do. To create apps for both the private and public entities at all market levels, be it local, regional, or international.
Knights says apps development is a niche area where citizens can create businesses to operate and to compete on the global market.
It's the one area we at the NTRC believe we as a country can compete with any other country in the world. There's nothing I can see that can prevent a startup app entity in SVG from creating an app that is used globally and which can provide revenue that is far greater than any other industry we have entered into the past or we are currently pursuing. It takes creative minds with certain skills along with the right support systems to achieve such successful apps. And I believe the world has not yet peaked in this market. I believe our Caribbean people are a very creative civilization. We just need to be provided with the tools, the systems, and the support. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what we're trying to achieve in the big picture. We want to see a Facebook or WhatsApp develop in SVG. And very soon. While such successful apps can make the developers and investors wealthy, such wealth, I believe, will flow throughout our economy and can transform it. We have to expand our view of not only looking for investors from outside to come into our country to invest in capital, we also have to look at creating our own investors.
Director of Special Projects, Dr. Gerald Thompson, says though SVG is still in the early stages of app development, the country is well on its way.
But we have to continue providing the basis, immersing our young people here at the community college, at our secondary schools and elsewhere, those who even left schools, that this is one of those areas that they can excel. They can become a Delasio. And at the age of 17, maybe whether it's as individuals or as collaboration with other members of your team, that you could actually be part of the new growth for St. Vincent and Grenadines.
Meanwhile, Minister responsible for Information Technology, Camila Gonzalez, used the opportunity to encourage the students to start looking at app development as a major income earner. He says all that are needed are brains, ideas, and the desire to see these ideas through. According to Gonzalez, competitions like I2 offer a good starting point.
I2 is encouraging us to look at our government, look at the way that the system is run, and to make it better. Our government services were inherited largely from the British when we became independent, 79. Before anyone in this auditorium beyond the old people section was born. And it's been tweaked slightly and modified slightly since then, but the systems are largely the same. If you could defrost an old British person and bring him to St. Vincent and the Grenadines today, he would recognize inland revenue because it's right where he left it. And he would recognize some of the systems that he or she left in place for us. And when they don't work today, there were people that were born before 1979 that are running the governments now say, well, it's the people's fault that it doesn't work because the system, they're used to it. It is the way things are done. But you know, and I know, that it's not just the people, it is the system itself that has not been able to adapt and adjust to modern times.
At the end of the competition, 6 students are expected to be awarded prizes ranging from $1,000 to $3,500. Each group of finalists, with the exception of those who place, will receive a monetary token of $500. The school with the most entries will receive a cash prize of $1,000. Registration forms are available at the Ministry of Education and the NTRC. The 2014 Coates OECS reading competition kicked off yesterday with the preliminary round. At the launching ceremony at the Coates St. Vincent Training Room in Kingstown, General Manager Michelle Samuel said the company is proud to host the competition for the 6th year running. The preliminary round of the competition will run until Monday, September 15th and will take place at the Ministry of Education's Curriculum Development Unit Conference Room in Kingstown. During the competition, each student will read 2 passages which will be unseen until they are ready to read. One will be in the form of a narrative or story form, while the other would be a news item. Each student will be given 1 minute to peruse each passage before reading. The competition will assess reading fluency, accuracy, enunciation, confidence, and expression, and is open to all primary schools throughout the country. 7 finalists from the participating primary schools will be selected for the September 25th finals of the local leg of the tournament, with the winner slated to go on to the regional finals in Grenada, scheduled for August, or that should be October 16th. Kristen Barber of the St. Mary's Roman Catholic School was last year's winner and represented St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the finals that were held in St. Lucia. Prime Minister Dr. Gonzalez is of the view there is a decline in the quality of calypsos here lyrically. Speaking at the launch of the first novel by Cecil Blazer Williams, The Memories of the Hibiscus, on Monday, Dr. Gonzalez says most of the calypsos that are now being recorded constitute only political speech.
And that is, you know, if you can hear me, if you can hear me on the political platform speak, and somebody takes what I said and put it in a calypso, well, really nobody's going to come and hear that. And similarly, if Sinclair does a speech and you simply reproduce what he's saying in a calypso just to bash Ralph, nobody can come listen. Well, a small number of people will come to listen to that.